Can you hear me out there? Well, here it is, folks, the Inflation Fighter Special. The specially equipped sale price Chevy pickup that helps you fight inflation by working harder and lasting longer.
Well, hello guys, and welcome back. How are you? So the last couple months I've been very busy doing other necessary projects around the place, But the time has come. I have got to make headway on this 71 Chevy project. Getting the body work done, getting the sanding done so I can paint. I at least want to get the cab and chassis out. Then I'll bring the bed in. But I may, we can deliver this, bring the bed in, and I'll work on that. But this thing has got to make some progress, is what I'm saying. So I am going to start this morning. I need to go to work in 20 minutes. I am going to quick mix up a batch of filler, start putting that on all my welds. Now someone has come in and the owner of this had some older gentleman come in and do a lot of filler and primer work ahead of me. But I guess he must not have wanted to do rust repair. I really don't know. There are several more issues that I see that he missed, so we'll take care of those along the way. But for now, let's get to mixing. Now once again, I'm going to be using my old faithful standby that I've been using, I think it's what my dad used when I was a kid. I've just been around this Evercoat lightweight my whole life, and it's never let me down, so I continue to use it. And I would say it's one of the less expensive Evercoat products. But I'm sure many of you have your favorites too. I always used to have a back window out of a 51 Chevy pickup that I would, we had it in the shop back home that we would mix body filler on. I'm pretty sure I have it around here somewhere, but I can't find it. I can't find anything anymore, so just mixing it on a piece of notepad paper here. Well, that was watery. I just used this the other day. Whoa. May have overdone it a little bit there. So guys, last night, maybe even a little before that, I don't know. All the days tend to run together when I'm doing this kind of work, but started putting feelers out there, as they say. Not sure who they are, and I don't know if anyone says that. But anyway, just trying to do a little sanding. Yesterday, my oldest son actually ended up helping me just because he jumped up there and wanted to. So we were playing around with pneumatic DA, electric DA on the top. Now there are brush strokes I see in the paint, and this paint is tough. It's kind of like when you try to sand interior latex paint. It doesn't sand, and all you're getting done is gumming up the sandpaper. So I don't know if it's some sort of exterior grade paint of that someone brought. I mean, they did a decent job. They got it nice and smooth, but I don't know what happened there. But nevertheless, very tough paint, very difficult to get off. I'm on the road tomorrow. I may stop and pick up chemical stripper. I was trying one of these little stripping wheels here. That was working pretty good. You know, I think they make discs out of this material for an angle grinder. I just wouldn't want to get it going too fast and too hot, you know, or we start overheating panels. May try that. We'll see what we can find. I really want one of those contour panel stripper things from Eastwood. You know, I think it's a similar material, but it's in a drum or a barrel shape. But they're over 200 bucks and probably justifiable for this project, and then I would have it. Just don't feel like spending the money right now. But nevertheless, I'm not going to show much of this. It's grunt work, and we know how to do that, right? But I'll keep you posted. Now, I promise I'm not going to show much of this because it's not that interesting. But, you know, if there is some interest to be seen or something to be learned, I guess I'll show that much. Now, I replaced my cab corner. New panel is about here, and you can see my sander is not touching this big old swath. So like about right where I welded and on up. So that means this original panel had this big old valley in it, you know. So it's really up to you on a project like this on a pickup where I have a bed covering pretty much all of this. The only way you could ever see that is if you look in between the back of the cab and the bed. And anyone doing that, you probably don't want for a friend anyway. No, I don't know. Now, it's rough down here. I see a little bit right down there, and that's below the weld. So, I guess how good you make it is up to you. I will fill that in, so I will put body filler up here, because you can see I've got shiny metal here and here, but not here. So this little dip is from this bend and then down to our weld. So that's easy enough to fix. I'll fill that in, and then you can see I've really got a sharp line in my filler here, and I really need to sand more. But you know, that's the question then. How far do I follow this? I see this here is all been sanded, and this here, and I still have a low spot in between about 1.5 inches wide that hasn't. Now obviously I'm going to sand everything before I put epoxy primer on, but you know, if I start getting into the frame, I could put filler here, and if I start getting into the area of the frame, and I've still got this situation going on, well, that just means the likelihood is that this whole panel, this 3-inch space here, is all dipped out or dished out like that. And you know, so then you got to figure out how to make it look right. Just feather the edge at some point here, and away you go. It really doesn't matter. But that's little decisions we all have to make. Here again, I have a sharp, funky line of filler, and I'm sanding off the primer on the panel right here, so that needs a touch of filler. I'm already touching high spots here. That looks probably where my weld seam was. So I got high spots there. This has been sanded. I don't know if you can see it, but there's a nice line right there. That has not been sanded, so that needs a little filler. Then up to our little inset panels. This is all sanded all the way around, but this little state of Kentucky here, all of this is not. Well, that was my call to supper, so clearly I have better things to think about. So I'm gonna go. But the point I'm just wanting to get across here is, don't make your filler. Like this, if I see that and I get in here with my sander to make that feather off so it looks like this, you're gonna have a big old dip in here. And you know it. And I know it. I've been there. I've made filler do what I want it to do, and it never works out right in the end. So just sand it down, see what it needs, and refill it. You will be so much happier. I know it's more time, I know it's more product, but you are going to be so much more pleased in the end with your project if you just have a little patience. So you have a hard line. These are all hard lines here. Sander isn't hitting them, but I have a nice soft edge down here, and then I can see rough filler in here, and I don't know if that's touching it or not. Around in there, that kind of shape. Something like that. Coonskin cap, or curly skunk hat with the tail up in the air. Sweetly!
Why, you skunk.
I have here the best paint remover you will ever buy. Why? Because it's the only one my local lumberyard had. So, must be good, huh? I don't know. Says heavy duty, semi-paste, rapidly removes multiple layers, eco-friendly. Come on, it's ZAR, Z-A-R, not CZ. I don't think the premier of Russia is going to help me strip the cab of this truck. But anyway, enough of nonsense. Let's spread this on here. I know this is way too tall for you to see anything, but honestly, I'm sure you understand what's going on. Oh my, I should have blown this off. Well, that'll help it. Soak it in, you know, and hold it where it needs to be. There we go. I've heard tell of plenty of guys that prefer to do it this way, that they, on purpose, use this stuff with a razor blade to strip an entire car. You're a special breed. This is the last thing I wanted to do, but what do I know? Well, hey guys, I wanted to give you a quick little update. I am just about to call it quits as far as sanding, initial sanding goes on the cab here. On the inside, got it all done. Now my primary weapon's on the inside here, where everything's an inside curve, a nice concave curve. Been using the teardrop block, you know, and believe it or not, I think this was a Gator brand sanding sponge, but primarily for all these interior steel panels that are painted, everything's an inside curve, and you got to have some way to sand all that, scuff up all that paint, so that primer will stick. And so this sanding sponge works really well for that, and I used it to get in these lines here, these recessed lines. So we got all that done. The dash is scrubbed down, the pillars, the top, everywhere where I filled holes is all done with that Durablock, like I said. Just everything looking good in there. And that is, I don't know if I'll probably kind of attack this like I did my 86 GMC. Do the inside first, and on this one I may even get it completely done first. I don't know. Maybe I'll go step by step, but and to be honest, I haven't even decided if I want to do epoxy primer. I probably should on the inside. Definitely I'll epoxy prime everything on the outside, because there's just so many different products going on here. I don't think a regular primer would have any problem sticking, but I just want to make sure we're not going to have a bad reaction with another product we have here. So, and then I think this is just about my last area I need to sand. I just put a little bit more down there. In my experience, this is just me personally, the hardest part to get for me to be happy on is these cab corners, where you weld them on. I always run into high spots of bare steel in between my, I don't know how to explain it. I should have, kind of like this, you see bare steel among the filler, and that's what it sands down to, but then it still feels wavy. So giving it one last shot, I will hand sand it, and beyond that we're gonna give it all the primers, block sand it, and if there's any issue there that I really need to take care of, we will do it then. So there you go. Got a lot of cleaning to do in the truck. I've got a lot of cleaning to do on that end of the shop, put up tarps or plastic or whatever. I've got a lot of work ahead of me, and then we will start priming. Okay, those of you who come around a lot will recognize that things are a little different in here. The fiberglass, this shed wall that I replaced earlier in the spring, I put foam board up just so we don't have fiberglass strands floating around yet, you know. Yeah, that window, all that's going to get replaced with a modern vinyl window. I'm not going to mess with what I was trying to do there. It just looks dorky. But anyway, I've put tarps up in my big open spaces, as you can see. So we just have a nice little paint booth area here. The exhaust fan that was in the wall over there, you remember? I made a glorified box fan out of it. Right now the breeze is just making it turn. So we'll put that in the doorway, and then I got a piece of wood to block off the rest, and when I turn that on, it actually sucks these tarps in a little. So we are creating a vacuum in here, which is great. I have put a house AC filter in that hole just to supply us with clean air. And then I'll button up the seams and away we go. I'll close that door over there, obviously, and it does an adequate job for a guy that, well, anyway, we'll talk more about that later as I'm painting. But then the truck, pretty much obvious, got everything I don't want overspray on masked off. I've come in, I've swept the floor, I hit it with the shop vac. I could wet it down when I'm painting. I don't know that I will. Right now I'm going to hit the body, everything with Sprayway glass cleaner. I really like using that. I do have a jug of wax and grease remover, which I could use also, but this is much cheaper and does just as good a job. It really does. So I'm going to start doing that, and then we are going to epoxy prime immediately following with 2K primer. We'll take a good look at it with a light, determine if we need to block it down. If not, we'll just go right to color after that. But most likely we'll hit it with some 400 and then go back with color later. So I better get to cleaning.
So if you get anything from this video, I hope it will be this. You do not need a professional setup to get good results. If you have an idea or a dream or the ambition to do this kind of project, go for it. Now there are certain things you can do to help yourself, such as I have, just like you're watching. Find an enclosed space. You know, whenever I do something like this, it always reminds me on, I think it was Robert Duvall on Days of Thunder. Remember that movie? I haven't seen it for probably 25 years, but isn't there a scene where he's painting a tractor in a barn, and like the tractor hasn't been disassembled at all, and it's just a huge open space, and he's just spraying that thing down? It always reminds me of that for some reason, but that's, I don't know why I mentioned that. But anyway, you know, I think of those $600 carports that used to be sold all over the country. A guy could easily enclose one of those with tarps and put a fan in it, and you'd have a pretty good paint booth. Or if you have any shed space, garage space, do yourself a favor, just make an enclosed space in it, and away you go. I did a video on the 86 GMC where I painted the cab just like this in an open warehouse situation. Turned out fine. I think, in my opinion, reality TV and then later YouTube really started to change people's minds about doing it yourself. What a professional shop does came into the home through the TV, you know, their setup, and people became self-conscious. Think back to your childhood or when you were a teenager. Most of you are guys my age or older. Everybody was working on their own cars, right? Maybe not everybody was painting their own cars. There were always, you know, since there have been cars, there have been mechanic shops and there have been body shops. That's true. But I would say the majority of people were working on their own cars at home. And probably some of the fault lies in, as time has progressed from the 90s forward, along with reality TV and so forth, showing what professional shops do. automotive technology has progressed so much that people no longer even want to touch their own cars. And I understand that. But working on an antique vehicle, such as this 71 Chevy, this is no different than it was in 1971. And I completely understand. At one time in my life, I ran a service and repair shop, and later a restoration shop is what I moved it into. I had a lot more space. I had a couple of car lifts. I had a professional paint booth that I bought and moved into it. And that's not where I am anymore. But with this little farm shed that I've had, I have always either been working on my own projects or someone else's projects. The owner of this pickup fully well realizes my setup, and yet he still wants me to work on this truck. He actually came out to the warehouse shop at work and looked at my truck cab, what I had done over there. He is satisfied that I will do a good job. So I just want to encourage you, if people say, no, you can't do that, don't listen to them. They are either trying to sell you something, or they have bought into the consumerism and the idea that you have to have a surgically clean setup in order to do this kind of thing. Absolutely, it's beneficial, but it is not necessary. You can do it. I believe in you. Thank you, and good night.
This paint booth worked out really well. I never had an accumulation of paint dust in here at all. So, very pleased with that. Now, I was really pushing it temperature-wise. I just had medium activator and reducer with that stuff, and we are now about 85. So, really kind of pushing it, but this morning I got up, it was maybe 68 and raining, which is beautiful. Early August in Kansas. If it's in the 60s, that's saying something. And right now, it's probably, could be mid-80s, which early August in Kansas, that's still really saying something. It's 3 o'clock now. But getting everything ready, it just took too long, so I didn't get to spray till this afternoon. But it looks like we were successful. And it actually almost looks, everything I've seen so far, or what I can tell, we could almost just come with color. And I know this guy would probably be very happy with it. Probably not going to do that. I had planned on wet sanding it with 400 just to make sure everything laid down really nice. It just looks pretty good. So, right here, it looks like maybe the epoxy primer got a little dry, so a little rough in there, so that could use some sanding. But it'd just be good to go over it. That way we know once we get it out in the sunlight with paint on it, she's going to look fine. So, now there's a fly in here. Gosh. And I know this is where some people like to stop. We got primer on it. That's good enough. Oh, what a comfortable seat. So guys, that's probably going to do it. I am sweating like a 500-pound sow in the sauna, you know. I had to have lost 5 gallons of water this morning. Anyway, that's kind of disgusting. This video was probably, I don't know, a month or 2 in the making. Just as I have time, I come out here. And I just want to say again, if you have a project you want to do, go for it. By all means, you know, you may want to do something with the surroundings to keep, you know, in this case, dust and bugs at a minimum, and just help yourself out. But don't let anyone talk you out of a dream or an idea. So yeah, like I say, it took a while to get to this point. Tomorrow's Sunday, not going to be out here, so it'll cure. Give it a chance, and then next week, I know I'm gone overnight, at least one night for work. I don't know when I'll have a chance. Maybe Monday night I can come out here and start wet sanding a little, and I can show you some of that. I know I already have, but I really don't see that I'm going to have to get too serious about much on here. I'm not saying there won't be a little problem here and there that we'll have to fix and respray. That's inevitable a lot of times, but it's really looking pretty good. I mean, this cab corner and the transfer of the rocker panels to the pillars, it's looking great. So I'm pleased. I'd drive it, you know. So next video on this, we'll get some bronze paint on it, and then either we'll start putting the interior parts back in this, and then I'll take this to storage, and then we'll probably start working on fenders, hood, doors, things like that, and then put them on here, put this back in storage, and then I'll bring the bed in. Is how I have to do these things. So hopefully everything else will go a little bit faster. All that being said, I'm going to go get some water, about 10 gallons of it, cool off in the AC a little bit, maybe start editing this video, and so I can get it up for tomorrow. And I just thank you so much for joining me. God bless you guys. See you on the next one. I wonder if we have any Dr. Pepper with a water chaser.